Welcome to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Groom. I can't believe we're in season 8. Amazing time to be a podcaster. We've got some incredible conversations that we're going to have today. And, I talked to a lot of founders, and the idea of wearing the sales hat is not the most natural for some folks. And so, why not have someone who lives and breathes sales on? And so today we're going to talk about what it, how you connect real growth, sales, and just having a mindset that equips someone to get hit some revenue targets and bring some value to their business and really their customers. Today our guest is Ronnell Richards. I want to make sure I get this bio right because he's doing some incredible things. He's a seasoned entrepreneur, sales leader extraordinaire, author, content creator, known for his philosophy. I love the name of this: "Shut the hell up and sell." He's built multiple businesses, some of which are called Business and Bourbon, Sayless Academy, and Legacy TSD. And that's just to name a few. You're definitely involved in a lot of things right now, but I just want to give a quick intro. Through your speaking engagements, you're a fellow podcaster as well. You've done some podcast work. You've done some real incredible on-camera storytelling when it comes to sales, and so I'm happy to have you on today, Ronnell. So without further ado, let's bring Ronnell to the stage. How's it going?
Hey, Kenny, appreciate that. But you forgot, man. I also won a gold medal in cross country skiing.
Is this?
Nah.
Are you? I was about to say, Ronnell, I've been following you for some time, and I do not remember you doing anything of the sort.
Okay, no cross country skiing, but no, I appreciate that introduction, man. Yeah, I try to stay busy, man. I need a James Brown record back here because I try to be the hardest working man. Not just hard working, but really intentional about the work. But make no bones about it, Kenny. No one's gonna outgrind me.
I love that. I love that. And that shows up on all your content, which we'll dig into in a little bit. I think where I want to start things off, before digging into sales strategy and going down that path, I think we should definitely see like what's behind your belief system, right? You talk a lot about identity in all your content in terms of showing up as yourself and how you can leverage that to sell or just like have conversations with your audience. And so I'm curious, like, what part of your background gave you the confidence to sell really anything to anybody? Because when I see Ronnell on social media, I'm like, depending on the moment, depending on the company that you're approaching people about, like you feel comfortable selling that in that moment to anybody. So what about your background is giving you that confidence?
Man, God, you said a couple of things there, Kenny, but I'll start with what makes me feel comfortable is something that maybe can't be replicated, and that is just my background, how I grew up. You see, if for those of you that are watching this, I got my Ohio State Buckeye hat on, as I'm a Buckeye born. However, I was raised in Utah, so when I was a kid, my parents moved me to Utah and grew up in that environment. And um, it was part of that upbringing that really, I was kind of forged in fire a little bit. When you are such an outlier and such a extreme minority, especially in the 80s and 90s, you're going to go one of two directions. Either you're going to, fortunately, I had great parents that helped to instill confidence in me and to made me keep my head up no matter where I was at, even though people everywhere I went were staring at me as like I was an oddity. So part of that for me, Kenny, is just who I am, how I was raised, the intention behind my parents and the intention that my parents had in guiding me and directing me to be the person and the man that I am today. But that ties back into something that you said earlier, which was um, the the showing up as yourself. I think that's something that gets a little misconstrued, especially in sales and in business, in the social media, like look at me world. Like I don't necessarily like look at it the exact same way. And here's what I mean by that. I'm almost 30 years into my career. Like, I'm, for lack of a better way to put it, in my industry, I'm goated. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can show up how I want to show up because I put in the work intentionally beforehand. People know that I'm a bankable product, right? What I want people to think about in sales and business is intention, and not necessarily just showing up as yourself. Again, gets overused. Showing up as yourself in some rooms may not be the best look for you. I'm not saying that you be inauthentic. I'm saying that you understand and have intention with how you show up and where you show up. Okay. So for me, what that meant and building my career in technology sales, for up until probably 8 years ago, Kenny, you'd never not see me anywhere not suited and booted. 100%. And the reason for that is I had this intention that was instilled in me by my parents that I have to show up a certain way. Not just instilled in me by my parents, but instilled in me by the environment that I grew up in. Growing up in that environment where you're an extreme minority, the first thing that people are going to think about you and did think about me was negative things. That's not who I am, but I had to control that narrative. Because if I don't show up a certain way intentionally, there's a negative assumption that's going to be made, and that's going to impact my ability to be successful. So one of the things as I'm traveling around the country and talking to people, I just want them to reframe authenticity. I want them to reframe intentionality and how they show up in the world and think about outcomes. What do you ultimately want? Like we get so caught up on some of these ego things that we lose sight of what it is that we're ultimately trying to do. Listen, if I didn't show up suited and booted for those years, you know what I wouldn't have been able to do, Kenny? I wouldn't have been able to employ the hundreds of people that I employed. I wouldn't have been able to now look and see these people that work for me whose kids are going through college and I help them to set up their 529 plans. I wouldn't have been in that position. You understand what I'm saying? So I just want people to think a little bit differently about what success looks like and how to frame that, how to frame the I feel like in some respects, Kenny, I have to push back on some of these narratives that get sensationalized, right, in sales and in business. And I realize that I'm part of it. I'm part of it because I'm sitting here talking to you. I look like I'm about to step out of here and go model for athleisure or something, right? Like Lululemon. And so I've created, and people look at me and they aspire to do some of the things that I've done. And so they look at me and say, oh, look how Ronnell shows up. But they don't know that, hey, Ronnell put in those dues and he was intentional about his actions. And I still am, very much so. It's just that my work has allowed me the liberty to be able to do some things that other people aren't able to do. So I would say entrepreneurs, sellers, building your career, professionals in general, anyone, everyone, man, think about how you show up. Be intentional about it. You know, just showing up and say, hey, it's just me. Accept me or don't accept me, bro. That could be a lesson for failure. I'm telling you right now. And at the end of the day, one of the things, Kenny, you've heard me talk about this before, is do you want to be right or do you want to get it right? I like getting it right.
Hmm. That's what I'm talking about. That's why we got Ronnell on right now. I appreciate you. Um, Something you said at the end there, where in certain rooms you can't you can't come in as you would prefer. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're 100% self, and we know why. That example of growing up in Utah makes perfect sense, right? There's definitely some thoughts and traits that people throw on a young black boy growing in Utah.
No
I can
doubt.
only imagine,
No
right,
doubt.
what
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
those things are. And so that was definitely, like you said, like you wanted to make sure you minimize some of those expectations, those negative ones that people may have had. And now you put in the work. I appreciate you saying you put in the work, because that is key as well. And I would say I probably started following you, I don't think it was 8 years ago, it was 7 years ago. And I did see the shift, you brought it up, suited and booted, and then all right, now you can at least come out sometimes and wear your Ohio State cap, like you know how to balance it out a little bit.
Yeah, because Kenny, here's the thing: you can't. Another thing to know about me is I'm a disruptor. It's in my blood. It can't. It started way before me. One of the things that you and your audience should know is that while we were there in Utah, my parents were leaders in the community, in the Black community, and they opened the very first beauty supply in northern Utah, okay, for Black people. Okay, when I walked in my house, I saw posters of kings and queens of Africa, right? Like I grew up in a disruptive household, meaning that, and when if you meet my father, you know exactly what I'm talking about. My father, I am my father's son. However, what I learned in my as we take these things to the next level, like my father, he's no nonsense, right? He's not having it. But what I learned in my journey, while I still have that in me, is that I can't change a room from the outside. I can't change. I can sit out here, and talk about things and the way things should be and the way I want them to be and everything. But if I can't get a seat at the table, I can't affect change. And again, this goes back to what I initially said: outcomes. So think about that, folks, in your business, in your life. What is the ultimate outcome that you want? And if you're outcomes focused, it changes everything. It changes how you view some of these things. It changes how you view ego and absence of ego, which is a topic that I'm very passionate about. If you guys get the chance, check out Deepak Chopra's done great work on that in terms of when to use ego, when to not use ego, right? And when you're outcomes focused, that's all you care. I care about what I'm trying to get at the end of the day. This little thing right here, this is temporary. It's like they say, win or lose the battle to win the war. I'm trying to win wars, because that's how you really make change. That's how you get to the levels of success that you want.
I appreciate that. As I think this is a good point to dive in a little bit into the book, the really the show, the movement around "Shut the Hell Up and Sell." I love the name. It removes a lot of what we see now, where somebody puts a fancy strategy in place. There's like these, the acronyms, and it stands for something. I really think that name always stands out when I see your post online around that. So shout out to you and your team
Thank
that
you.
put that together. But what does like the shut the hell up and sell mean in today's context? Really is thinking along the lines where like the sales process, everybody's in people's DMs and stuff is getting automated. Like where does that fit in this world that we're moving to, where the sales process itself is morphing and turning into something we necessarily haven't seen in the past?
Yeah. So while some parts of the process have changed, because that's what technology does, right? Like this is just the latest technology. It ain't nothing new. You know, 30 years ago, they were going through this thing with fax machines. 25 years ago, it was the internet. 60 years ago, it was the telephone. There's always some new technology. But fundamentally, how we sell and how we connect and build relationships has not changed and never will. It's just the tools that we use to get there change. So like you mentioned AI and automation, this is real. Listen, I don't love it, but I'm embracing it because this is part of business now. So as you look at that transactional part of the sales process, the front end, right now it's clunky, meaning AI and automation, and it's uncomfortable. But I can tell you that, Kenny, I'm committed to figuring it out. So I've been working on it. I have a small team that's working on it to figure out those tools. Now back to the shut the hell up and sell and what that's about. So these tools, the way that we communicate, these are all tools to funnel us to a discovery, right? Once we get to the discovery, those tools are out the door. So once we've got to that discovery meeting, someone has honored us with their time. It is now incumbent upon us to make them the star. So when you think about shut the hell up and sell, shut the hell up and sell is about philosophy and it's about tactical execution. The philosophy of understanding that our voice is not as important as the customer's voice, which people, they get that, duh, but they don't know how to do it. They don't really commit to the philosophy, number one. And number two, they don't have the tools to keep them in check. You want to know the biggest issue that I see with salespeople on discovery is the advice monster. Okay. And the advice monster is when they get that discovery meeting, every time a customer gives them a little buying signal, they want to jump in, right? They say something like, they'll talk about a little problem they have, and then they'll say, oh, my product addresses that problem. And which is one of the most destructive things you can do. And it's against the philosophy of shut the hell up and sell. Instead, what we teach is shut up. And here's how to shut up. Keep asking more questions. Drill, get down, clarifying questions, all those things, because the more information that you get from your customer, the better for you, because one, they're going to lay out the recipe. They're going to tell you how to close them if you ask enough questions. See, oftentimes when we get suckered into that advice monster, we're up here, we're just addressing a superficial issue, right? The basic issue, which is the reason why they're talking to us. But what we're trying to uncover in the shut the hell up and relationship-centric sales philosophy is the deeper stuff. I want to know personal impact. When you finally get that meeting with someone, Kenny, there's already business alignment. There's business alignment. So I know that. I want personal alignment. I want to know what's going to get that person fired. I want to know what's going to get them promoted. Because when I know those things, now I can weave my solution in as an impact to those things they care the most about. You understand what I'm saying? Now that's emotional motivation. That's beyond rational, right? The rational stuff is where most salespeople play. The superficial, rational, transactional brain. My product's cheaper than yours. I got these more value props than them. At the end of the day, we're doing business with individuals. I got to know about you. I got to know about your daily life. I got to know about your business intimately. So again, as I'm presenting my solution, I'm impacting what you care the most about. And that's what's going to separate any seller or any business person from all of their other competition.
Oh, you had some nuggets in there, Ronnell. I was sitting over here taking notes. Excuse me if I'm off in the clouds thinking about ideas, but that is super powerful. There's just like the idea of just asking questions and like listening on a call. If you're not a podcaster, I definitely think even for podcasting, right? Like that's a skill.
Oh,
It takes some time to get to. But there's always those moments, even for podcasting, when you ask a question and then you see somebody's face light up and then they go into their bag and then they give you, like you said, the recipe to how you can offer value for them. I love that.
You want some, I'm going to throw out some podcasting advice for folks that are out there, and you know this, but you said something. It's the same sort of skill set. And this may sound polarizing, but it is what it is. I don't care. Shannon Sharp makes a ton of money podcasting, and he went viral for his Cat Williams interview, whatever it was, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Shannon Sharp is a horrible podcaster. He's a horrible interviewer. So what he has to do is he has to get people that have tons of personality and can kind of take over, and they just capitalize off of that, right? He just sits back there and does his Shannon thing, and they talk and they take control. Now, conversely, you look at some of the biggest, like the problem with Shannon, problem is that he's going to be a flash in the pan. He's chasing, you look at it now, he's chasing like polarizing guest so that he can recreate that. Meanwhile, you look at someone like Stephen, I forget his name, Stephen, the Diary of the CEO guy, the British guy, okay? He's masterful. And he does such a great job at asking questions, asking clarifying questions, and getting deeper in those. That's the reason why he's so successful and his brand has such longevity. He can bring on Kamala Harris. He can bring on, someone on the other end of the spectrum. He can bring on anyone and create great content. So it's that same sort of thing. in business and in sales and podcasting, like knowing how to ask great questions and having the discipline to pull more out is going to be your key to being successful in sales, business, and podcasting.
That's dope, man. It's interesting that you bring up those two different types of creators, right? In this space, there's a market for both. Like, but to your point, you tell the difference in, like, I don't want to say production value, but one guy who you mentioned, the Diary of a CEO, like it feels like you're watching a full production versus, I think, Shannon's, to your point, it's like somebody we really want to see just get on the couch and like talk their ish.
Kenny, what you're watching is, I'm gonna throw a hip hop reference. You're seeing the difference between Young MC and Wu Tang. Okay, popularity versus staying power. Okay, and this is how you build a successful business as well. It's through deep relationships. See, that guy, whether it's the sales guy or it's the Shannon Sharp figure, they're going to be chasing their tail every month, every quarter, every year. Okay. Where this person over here, they're building deeper relationships. And how this translates into sales, relationships you'll be able to monetize in business. You'll be able to monetize for years. So when I talk about these philosophies, I'm not talking about how to make your quota this month. I'm not talking about how to make your quota this year. I'm telling you how to build a business. I'm telling you how smart entrepreneurs do it. And this is how you'll not only you'll build a business that's going to feed you today, but it's going to feed you every year and make your life so much easier. What people hate the most about sales is the front end of it, the prospecting. They hate the rejection and all that. But here's the thing, when you do the things that we're talking about right now, what it does is it builds a successful business and builds advocates for you. So your customers end up becoming non-payroll salespeople for you. And you end up getting referrals, predictable. This is how you do it. And you can't build that sort of business if all of your selling is up here on a very superficial level. You got to get deeper.
Got it. Got it. All right. I wanna pivot a little bit to how you position your personal brand to drive the many businesses that you're a part of, right? I see Ronnell first, right? And then there's this conversation, like you said, you're out to have a conversation and you want to spur that dialogue with your audience, right? There's a system there that I feel like you put into place. Like, how do you structure your content and presence so that it aligns with the revenue driving outcomes, like you mentioned, like where you're not necessarily talking about, hey, here's how I hit my goal this month, but here's how I have a lasting relationship with my customer or my audience for just long term
Yeah, yeah.
revenue, long term benefit. Like, talk a little bit about how you structure your content, because your content stands out to me in that way, because you're having some incredible conversations, and it doesn't feel like you're being transactional.
Yeah. It's been a journey. So I'll start by what I just didn't. I don't know why I'll say that I did a bad job. I didn't. It's been a journey and a organic progression. And I think anything in life, that's where you get the best outcomes, when you have good intentions and just organically go where things take you and then add some intention to that. So for me, when I started down the journey, I didn't have it actually came through pain, which is where a lot of good things come from, is from pain. So when I started my journey, in terms of building personal brand and social media, it started after the biggest failure of my professional career. I had closed a company that I started from nothing and grew it to pretty large, and it was a devastating loss for me. And the first time in my professional career that I suffered such a significant loss. Like, I've had bad months, I've had bad quarters, but ultimately I always win. I didn't win ultimately, and I had to, after 13 years in business, had to shut the doors, and it was painful. And around that time, I'm watching LinkedIn and I'm seeing people with cameras and say a lot of stuff, and game recognizes game. I'm watching and I'm hearing this advice and things that people are saying. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. This is some bullshit. You playing social media. You ain't really lived this life. And so that's what inspired me to start sharing. I'm like, you know what? No, I've been through this. I'm going to start sharing some things. And as I started to share things, I didn't have I didn't really have a plan to build a brand. I was just sharing what was on it was cathartic in a way, Kenny. And what happened with that is you build this relationships and the followings and people that can connect and relate, and game recognizes game. So what you see is at the top. What I saw through that is at the kind of like the top levels in the executive suite. I found that I was having lots of fans there that they would never even comment or like or anything, but they'd reach out to me because game recognizes game. They're like, okay, this cat's legit. So what I started was just sharing my authentic truths that I've learned. And over time, I found, man, this is great, but there's no direction in it. It's just me sharing, which is cool. But in our world, the business world and business social media, that doesn't really make money. Like we're not think about it. These other platforms are attention platforms. Instagram, TikTok. You get attention, you get a check. LinkedIn ain't that way. It's thought leadership, and you have to convert in other ways. And so I've just started to be more intentional. I'm giving you the short and condensed version, but I started to be more intentional about leveraging it with call to actions, making sure that I have call to actions, number one, and using it as a tool to get data, because data is power, right? So driving people to platforms and things where we could collect their data so we can market and sell directly to folks and not relying on platforms to distribute our message. And then I just look for certain things just happen organically. Like you mentioned, Business and Bourbon. Business and Bourbon turned into a company and didn't start that way. It was just a platform, and ultimately evolved into a company that we've done really well on over the years. So
And I just want to shout out Business and Bourbon too. Like it makes so much sense. Like getting together, networking, having a drink. Like there's more to it, obviously, than that.
Yeah.
But I just think you are tapping into like this, like the breaking bread. I just feel like that's like a premium experience right now. And so I appreciate you for putting the effort into a space like that. And really, again, the robots are coming. We get it. Everything's digital now, but there's still such a premium, probably even more of a premium on having those experiences with people.
Yeah.
Just having conversation. Like I feel like the content you put out around your events, there isn't a lot of fluff. It's really you having conversations with your audience, and your audience is pretty massive for you. So for you to take that, a lot of people, they say once they get to, the right amount of audience, now they just put stuff on cruise control. I don't see that with what you're doing.
Because part of it, Kenny, is just I like it. Like even to this day, I've had marketing teams and all that for years, but like you look at Ronnell's personal content, it's Ronnell. Like I do it. I post it. I write the comment. I respond to the comments. I do the copy. Like it's my authentic voice. So I would tell people, don't look for the easy button. Use your authentic voice. Be you in that respect, and just know that it's going to connect and relate to some folks out there, and know that your success KPI is one. It's not thousands of views. It's not 100 likes. It's that one person on the other end that could potentially be someone that you can do business with. You only need one.
Got it. All right. So we're getting close to the end of our conversation. You have started many businesses, successful businesses, like you said. You've had some failures. I think that comes with the game, right? That we're in. What's your point of view on founder-led sales versus hiring someone who may have that skill set? I'm curious, as you've built out these different businesses, when do you decide to bring in somebody else to maybe do the selling, and you can do the all the other founder CEO stuff, the stuff that comes along with it. So like what's your point of view on the founder led sales versus bringing somebody in, a rep of some sort, a sales director, to lead that for you?
So funny because founders forget and they don't recognize that the very best salesperson they will ever have is them. No one has the same amount of passion, no one has the same amount of understanding as the founder. When you watch Meta roll out a new whatever, who's selling it? It's Zuckerberg. It's not some guy underneath them. When you watch Apple roll out their new product, who's out there on stage selling it? Tim Cook. So I see this in a lot of with my consulting firm. What I see a lot with entrepreneurs is this arc. They are kind of doing everything, right? They make some money, and now they try to remove themselves from different tasks, which is smart. You have to, because you can't do everything in scale. But where I see them, the mistake they have, and where the issue is they try to bring in salespeople to replicate themselves. So they're looking to, I'm sorry, wrong word, duplicate. They're trying to duplicate themselves. So they're like, okay, I need to make another me. And then they go hire somebody and they put them in an environment and say, okay, you're super talented. You've done really well over here. Okay, go make it happen. You can do anything you want. Here, I'll give you a budget, all these things. They expect to bring people into an environment and do what they did. And I tell them, if they could do what you did, well, then they wouldn't need a job. They'd be you. And so what I coach founders on is, number one, you can't duplicate yourself. What you can do is you can take processes. So here's some advice for founders. Start creating SOPs. Start understanding all the process around how you sell. And those specific aspects of the process, boom, you can take those out and you can hire people and enable them to be successful through having them do those aspects of the process. Number two, stop trying to take yourself out of the sales process. That's where you're most valuable. It ain't sitting in your office. It ain't looking at spreadsheets. You bring the most value to your organization by sitting in front of a customer. But what you can't be doing if you're going to scale is all that other stuff, prospecting and all. No, you got to remove yourself out of that because your time is more valuable now. So the most successful founders that I know and I've worked with, they never forget that. That's where they are the most valuable. Okay. And when you bring in salespeople and you hire salespeople, you have a plan that enables them to be successful with clear SOPs, clear KPIs, direction and instruction. That's the number one area where they go wrong is they don't do that because, well, they didn't do it. They just hire people and expect them to be successful. So you're failing them.
I like that what you threw in there around like the SOPs. I don't really hear too many sales minded people bring up those SOPs and those processes, but I definitely think that's key to, again, like you said, having somebody come in and at least have an understanding of how you do things, but they're not going to do it the way that you do it.
Kenny, you can scale process. You can't scale people. You feel me? I can scale. I can't, unless you get a cloning machine, I can't clone Kenny.
Yeah. And one thing I want to throw in there, I feel like the great sellers that I know, you're in that bucket, like they're going to not break the rules, but they're going to do stuff their way. And I think that's something that stands out to me. All the people that I follow, where I feel like they have a knack for selling, they do it their own way. And so to your point, like there is no clone, there is no AI that you can just say, watch him and rinse and repeat. That brings value to the individual. I understand you got to pay people their certainly pay people their worth. But But I'm glad you threw that in there. So this conversation, this was powerful for me. I was over here taking some notes, some mental notes. I wrote down a couple things. I think for folks trying to build sustainable growth, anytime they can follow Ronnell, I recommend. So, what's the best way for folks to tap in with your brand? I know you're involved with several companies, but is there like a go-to for somebody to follow and maybe connect with you?
If you can't find me, you're Helen Keller. I try to be everywhere, bro. Like so, but
Everywhere. I think you even have Ronnell Richards LLC, right?
yeah, that's my consulting firm. So go to ronnellrichards.com. That is the hub for kind of everything. So ronnellrichards.com. Make sure you connect on LinkedIn. You can, ronnellrichards.com will connect you to Business and Bourbon, Sayless Academy, which is my private label school. You can go to LinkedIn Learning, where we have, I think, 17 courses licensed to them on their platform. So try to be everywhere, man.
Appreciate that. That call out for the training, the LinkedIn Learning. I've taken that training myself. I appreciated it. I learned a lot going through that, and so I'm glad you threw that in there. Last question: what do you hope people do differently after hearing this conversation?
Think. My job, my role is to agitate people's brains. I want you to think. I want you to think, to get off of, autopilot and question what you know. Have a growth mindset. Question what you think that you know, and focus on getting it right, not being right.
Mic drop moment. Thank you, Ronnell, for being on the platform. Those tuning in, thank you for tuning in to another incredible episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. Peace.
Thanks, Kenny.